Hello everyone. Today we're going into a new lesson on solving by the quadratic formula. So we've already learned solving by factoring, we learned about square roots, and when it's already in factored form. But now we also have something called the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula is kind of special because it works every single time. So to solve by factoring, for instance, the equation has to be factorable, and that doesn't always happen. To solve by square roots, that x term needs to be out, and so that's not always the case either. But for the quadratic formula, it doesn't matter what this equation looks like. This formula will always be able to solve it and give you your solutions. And so the quadratic formula is when you have a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then the solutions will be x equals negative b. You can kind of just read that as opposite of b. So for instance, if b was negative 2, this would be a positive 2. If b was 7, this would be negative 7. So you're just going to take the opposite sign. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And now you should recognize this b squared minus 4ac from what we talked about before, because that is our discriminant. And remember, the discriminant tells us how many real solutions we have. So if you recall, if what you have underneath this radical, this b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, that means we're going to have 2 real solutions. If it equals 0, we're just going to have 1 solution. And if it's less than 0, then we're going to have no real solutions. And we'll see some examples of those later on. So let's look at an example. So I want to solve 2x squared minus 5x plus 3 equals 0 using the quadratic formula. So first step is always, just like we did for all the other ones, is we want this to be set equal to 0, because to use the quadratic formula, I need all my terms on one side and the right hand side being 0. So this one's already is, and so my next step is to go ahead and label my a, b, and c. So my a is 2, b is negative 5, c is 3. You can also go ahead and write that on the side. And now I can go ahead and plug this into my formula. So my formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I can go ahead and plug in all of my a, b, and c. So when I plug in b, my b is negative 5, so I really take the opposite sign of that, so it's going to be positive 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 3, all over 2 times a, which is 2. And so it looks like a lot, but we're just going to go ahead and simplify it part by part. So I'll first do the inside. So negative 5 squared, I'm going to get 25, minus 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. And then 2 times 2, I get 4. Now 25 minus 24, I get 1, so I have 5 plus or minus the square root of 1 over 4. Well, the square root of 1 is just 1, so I get 5 plus or minus 1 over 4. And then now from here, I'm going to separate this into 2 different equations because of this plus or minus. So this means I really have 5 plus 1 over 4, and then 5 minus 1 over 4. Well, 5 plus 1, I get 6 over 4, which is just going to equal 1.5. 5 minus 1, I get 4 over 4, which is equal to 1. So that means that my 2 answers are x equals 1 and 1.5.